You cut your finger while making dinner. Not badly enough to panic, just enough to be irritating. So you do what almost everyone does now. You rinse it under the sink, make a small dramatic face because apparently that helps. Wrap it in a tiny bandage, and 10 minutes later, you are back to touching your phone like nothing important happened. That is the modern version of blood. It is a medical inconvenience, a red warning from your body that can usually be cleaned, covered, and forgotten. Now take away the sink, the bandage, the soap, the clean floor, the trash can, the walls, the locked door, the refrigerator, the hospital, the antibiotics, and the very comforting idea that the outside world cannot smell what just happened. Put that same blood beside the only safe place your group has a circle of firelight in the dark, with sleeping bodies curled close to warmth, children pressed against parents, scraps of food buried in ash, and a wounded person stepping back into camp after sunset, trying not to limp and trying even harder not to look scared. Then a single drop falls into the dust near the sleeping place. To you, that might look like almost nothing. To a Stone Age camp, it may have been a signal. Not because ancient humans were foolish, not because they believed every red mark was magic, and not because one drop of blood would instantly summon every predator in the valley like some kind of prehistoric dinner bell. The real reason is more interesting. Blood did not stay private. Once it left the body, it began moving through the world in ways eyes could not follow. Its smell changed the air, its mark changed the ground. Tiny creatures could find it before large ones ever appeared. A clean wound could become a waiting problem, and a safe sleeping place could start carrying the message that something vulnerable had happened there. In a world without walls, that mattered. The camp was not just where people slept, it was the safest circle they had managed to build inside a landscape that did not care whether they survived the night. So the rule was simple. Maybe it was not spoken in these exact words, and it was certainly not written down. It was not universal across every group, climate, or century, but as a survival principle, it makes brutal sense. Never let blood touch the camp. The first problem was a thing you could not see. Smell. Modern humans are very good at underestimating smell because we spend most of our lives inside rooms designed to erase it. We wash it off, spray things over it, seal it in plastic bags, put leftovers in containers, and then act surprised when a dog still knows exactly what we ate yesterday. Outside, smell is not background. For many animals, it is almost a second landscape, a map made of invisible trails who passed here, how long ago, whether they were healthy, whether they were afraid, and whether something was wounded. Blood has a particular odor. That metallic smell is not just poetic language. Researchers have studied a chemical component of mammalian blood odor called E2D, and the results are fascinating. In experimental contexts, this blood odor component triggered approach behavior in some carnivores and blood-feeding insects, while in prey animals like mice, it triggered avoidance. Human participants also showed signs of arousal and subtle avoidance, even when they did not consciously identify the smell as blood. That matters because blood can carry opposite messages at the same time. To something looking for food, it may mean opportunity. To something trying not to become food, it may mean danger. Blood is not just a substance, it is a message different bodies read in different ways. Now place that message near a Stone Age sleeping area. The fire is low, wind moves across the ground, and the group is tired. Someone has returned with a cut foot, a torn palm, a bite, a scrape from stone, or a deep scratch from carrying wood through thorny brush. Nothing dramatic enough to kill them immediately, but enough to change the air around the safest place they have. And the air does not belong to the camp. It drifts past a ring of bodies, past the edge of the firelight, and into the dark where other creatures are making their own survival calculations. This does not mean a predator smells one drop and charges straight in. Predators are not movie villains. Large carnivores are careful animals. They avoid injury when they can, because a bad decision can mean starvation. Still, blood shifts the calculation. It can make a place more interesting. It can suggest that something nearby is hurt, mixed with cooked meat, hides, sweat, smoke, waste, and sleeping humans. It can make the safe circle smell a little less like a guarded human camp and a little more like a place where weakness has appeared. That is not a guarantee of attack. It is a risk multiplier. Ancient survival often depended on respecting risk multipliers before they became disasters. The first creatures to find blood, though, were not always the ones with glowing eyes. Often, the earliest visitors were small enough for people to underestimate. Flies do not need a dramatic invitation. Blood-feeding insects do not care that a wound has emotional significance, or that the group is exhausted, or that the injured person walked for hours to get home. They respond to exposed fluid, warm skin, and chemical signals in the air. Picture it as a simple stick figure scene. A person sits beside the fire while another hand wraps the injury. A child watches from behind an adult. Near a stained hide, a few tiny dots begin to gather. It looks harmless until you remember what those tiny dots can mean. Long before a predator tests the edge of camp, insects can test a wound. Flies may move between waste, carcasses, scraps, skin, and injury. Mosquitoes, biting flies, and other blood-seeking insects can turn a wound into a place of irritation, contamination, and repeated opening. Ancient humans did not have germ theory. They did not know about bacteria in the modern sense, or that microorganisms could enter tissue, multiply, and turn a manageable injury into fever, swelling, and death. But you do not need germ theory to notice patterns. Dirty wounds go bad more often. Certain smells mean trouble. Flies gather before rot becomes obvious. A person who keeps bleeding near the sleeping area attracts attention from things no one wants near children. If a group survives by noticing patterns, those observations become habits. A wound might be cleaned away from bedding, washed at the edge of camp if water is nearby, wrapped with hide, fiber, leaves, moss, or whatever the environment provided. Bloody scraps, stained materials, and butchery waste could be kept outside the sleeping circle, not because anyone had a textbook, but because memory was a textbook when nothing else existed. That memory mattered because a wound was not one problem. It was a countdown. The dramatic moment was the opening of the skin, the cut, the pain, the shock, the little flash of panic on a face when red appeared on the hand. In a prehistoric camp, though, the real test began after the bleeding slowed. Could the injured person still walk tomorrow? Could the wound stay closed through the night? Around those questions gathered all the less visible pressures, food that might need to be spared, work that someone else might have to do, children who still needed watching, firewood that still had to be gathered, water that still had to be carried, and a camp that could not stop functioning just because one body had been hurt. This is where ancient humans become much more impressive than the cartoon version people sometimes imagine. They were not helpless animals waiting for modern medicine to be invented. The archaeological record gives us evidence of ancient people surviving serious injuries. Healed fractures and damaged bones with signs of recovery show that some individuals lived long enough after trauma that care was likely part of the story. The evidence is not simple. A healed bone does not tell us every detail of care. It cannot tell us who sat beside the injured person, what material they used on the wound, what they believed, or what exact words were spoken in the firelight. But it does tell us something important. Survival after injury often required more than one body. It required other people, and those other people needed the camp to keep working. That is why blood in the wrong place was not only a private medical issue, it threatened the system that allowed care to happen at all. A camp was not random. When people picture a Stone Age camp, they often imagine a loose cluster of figures around a fire, as if everyone simply dropped their things wherever and hoped for the best. Real camps, even temporary ones, tend to develop structure. A hearth becomes a center. Sleeping happens where warmth, shelter, and visibility make sense. Toolmaking needs space where sharp flakes will not slice someone's foot in the dark. Butchery works better away from the resting place, where blood, stomach contents, hide scrapings, bones, and smell can be managed. Waste goes somewhere. Food is processed somewhere. Children are kept close to some activities and away from others. That organization is technology. Not shiny technology, not something you can hold up and put in a museum case like a spear point, but technology all the same. A camp is a machine made of repeated decisions. People had to know where sleep belonged, where meat was cut, where bones were dropped, where the sick person could rest, where smoke drifted, where children could move, and where the calm center of the group needed to remain clean enough to feel safe. Modern people understand this more than we think. You do not cut raw chicken on your pillow. You do not change a bandage on the kitchen table and then serve dinner on the same spot without cleaning it. You do not put garbage in your bed. You have rooms, sinks, disinfectant, sealed bags, plumbing, washing machines, floors, and the quiet luxury of pretending space does not matter. Ancient humans had space too, but their walls were social rules. Their plumbing was distance. Their cleaning system was fire, scraping, washing, covering, discarding, moving, and remembering what happened last time. So a few drops of blood near the sleeping place were not just messy, they were in the wrong category. They belonged at the edge, where animals were butchered, hides were scraped, and wounds could be cleaned without turning the center of camp into a signal. This is the deeper reason the title works. Never let blood touch the camp does not have to mean no blood ever appeared anywhere humans lived. That would be impossible. People bled, animals were butchered, birth happened, hunting happened, accidents happened, bodies are inconvenient like that. The rule means something more practical. Do not let a dangerous process enter the protected center. Do not let the outside world cross the boundary. The obvious answer, of course, is predators. And yes, predators matter. Imagine a large cat, a wolf, a hyena, or another carnivore moving through the dark beyond the firelight. It is not thinking in words or planning like a human villain. It is reading the environment through scent, sound, memory, hunger, and risk. Smoke means something. Human voices mean something. Fire means something. Several awake adults mean something. A camp is not easy prey. But now add blood. Not a giant pool, not a gruesome scene, just a scent of injury where injury should not be, a stained wrapping too close to the hearth, a trace near bedding, a trail from the dark into the center. The predator still has to decide whether the risk is worth it, but the question has changed. Is there something weak here? Is there food here? Is there a wounded animal? Has this group become careless? Again, we should be careful. Fire may deter many animals, but it is not a magic force field. Human groups can be dangerous, but they are not invincible. Predators are cautious, but desperate animals sometimes break patterns. That is exactly why ancient people could not rely on one solution. Protection came from layers: fire, noise, group sleeping, watchfulness, clean camp space, food management, scent management, and memory. No single layer had to be perfect if the layers worked together. Blood near camp weakened more than one layer at once. It marked a trail, attracted insects, made the wound harder to keep clean, unsettled the sleeping area, and forced the group to react when they were tired, cold, hungry, or already frightened. Fear can spread even faster than scent. Now picture the child in the camp. The child does not understand E2D bacteria or predator risk calculations. What the child sees is an adult freezing at the edge of the firelight, another adult pointing sharply at the ground, bedding being moved, and the injured person guided away from the center. The child learns, not from a lecture, but from the choreography of panic controlled just enough to become action. That is how many survival rules probably lived in gestures, routines, and the way people reacted before they explained. A hide is moved, soil is covered, a child is pulled back, water is brought, the stain is taken to the edge. No one needs to say, this is a prehistoric hygiene protocol involving olfactory risk and wound contamination. That would be a terrible campfire conversation, and honestly, a little hard to fit on a cave wall. Behavior can exist without modern words. Ancient people did not need to understand the invisible mechanism to know the visible pattern. Blood near bedding was bad. Rot near food was bad. Flies on a wound were bad. Meat scraps beside sleeping children were bad. A strange smell that arrived before sickness was bad. If enough generations noticed the same things, the group did not have to rediscover the lesson every time. It became tradition, it became habit, it may even have become taboo. This is where we have to be responsible. We cannot say, all Stone Age people had a formal blood taboo. That would be too clean, too universal, and almost certainly wrong. Stone Age people lived across enormous spans of time, climate, ecology, and culture. A group near an Ice Age steppe was not living like a group in a tropical forest. A coastal camp was not the same as an inland cave shelter. The archaeological record is uneven, and most materials that would show daily cleaning habits have simply disappeared. But we can say this, for mobile hunter-gatherers, camp discipline mattered. For people living close to animals, insects, weather, injury, and hunger, small signs mattered. Blood was one of the strongest signs a body could produce. The deeper rule was boundary control. What belongs inside the human circle, and what must stay outside? That question sounds simple, but it may be one of the oldest survival questions humans ever answered. Inside the circle were warmth, children, sleep, tools, stories, shared food, and injured people who could still be protected. Outside were waste, rot, butchery, sharp debris, dangerous smells, exposed blood, and the parts of life that attracted the wrong kind of attention. The boundary was not a wall, it was behavior. And behavior is fragile. It only works when tired people still remember it, when the group agrees that the rule matters, and when someone notices the drop before everyone lies down. That is the central reversal. This video is not really about ancient people being afraid of blood. It is about ancient people understanding that safety is a place you have to maintain. Modern safety feels passive. You close a door, turn a lock, wash your hands, throw something away, and the systems around you quietly absorb the danger. Pipes carry it off. Trash trucks remove it. Medicine handles it. Walls separate you from most animals. Refrigerators slow rot. Floors can be cleaned. You live inside invisible systems so reliable you barely notice them. A Stone Age camp had systems too. They were just made of people, the elder who remembered where butchery belonged, the adult watching children near the fire, the hands that knew which materials could cover a wound, the person who noticed flies gathering too early, and the quiet memory of what happened the last time someone ignored a smell. That is not primitive. That is social engineering under pressure. The modern reversal is that we are still doing the same thing, just with better tools. We separate raw meat from bedding. We wash cuts. We cover wounds. We treat blood in the wrong place as an alarm. Blood on a kitchen floor, blood on a bedsheet, blood on a sidewalk, blood on a shirt when no one expected it. Your attention snaps toward it before you decide to be rational. That reaction is old. Your body knows blood is information. It may not know yet whether the message is injury, danger, someone else's pain, your own, a warning, or a memory, but it knows to look. That little jolt is not weakness. It is part of the same ancient alarm system that once made a camp turn toward a red mark in the dust. Of course, modern medicine changed everything, and that matters too. We should not romanticize a world where a small wound could become a life-threatening infection, where a cut foot could slow a group, where a deep gash could mean fever, and where no one had antibiotics waiting in a cabinet. Modern sanitation is one of the greatest achievements in human history. Clean water, wound care, vaccines, surgery, emergency medicine, and antibiotics have saved more lives than any camp rule ever could. But modern life also hides the old logic. It makes danger disappear so quickly that we forget how much intelligence was once required just to keep a sleeping place safe. Return to the opening scene. The wounded person steps into the firelight, and the camp sees the blood. No one needs to scream. Bedding shifts away from the stain. A stained hide is carried out of the sleeping area. Water, ash, plant fiber, or a prepared scrap of material appears in someone's hands. Another person watches the dark beyond the fire while a child is held back from stepping too close. By dawn, the injured person may still be there, wrapped and tired but breathing. The ground may be scraped or covered. The fire may be low, but steady. From a distance, the camp might look ordinary again. That is the point. Survival often looks ordinary after it succeeds. No dramatic battle, no monster lunging from the dark, no single genius saving everyone, just a group of humans noticing a small sign and acting before it became a large disaster. That may be one of the most human things about us. We are not the strongest animal. We are not the fastest. We do not have the best teeth, the best claws, or the best night vision. But we are very good at turning fear into rules, rules into habits, and habits into shared protection. So maybe the Stone Age rule was never really about blood touching the ground. It was about danger crossing a boundary. It was about knowing that the camp was not safe because the world was gentle. The camp was safe because people made it safe, again and again, with memory, attention, and work. And if a few drops of blood could change the behavior of an entire camp, then that raises an even stranger question. What happened when the danger left no mark at all? What happened when the only warning was a smell in the dark?